They weren't killed by bombs. They were gunned down one by one in the streets, unarmed civilians. And yeah, it's in the order of tens of thousands. And again, the number like 43,000. We are waiting for the complete destruction of the regime and a new regime coming, waiting for a chance for the people to actually choose what they want to do and a better future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Western Spirit here from Israel. I'm Ariel Whitman, and today with us we have Sana Ebrahimi. Sana was born in Iran, left Iran at the age of 22 or 23, she said, I think.
Okay.
And that was in 2019, so really not too long ago. 2019. And Sana is someone who I really recommend following her on all her social media platforms. She is giving, I guess, the way I can describe it is she is a voice for the people in Iran that cannot talk to us. And she's able to convey, because a lot of the people that are Iranian activists, so to speak, quote unquote, are people that have not really been in Iran. They might be second generation or even third generation. Sana gives a voice that I think not a lot of people get to do in the West. So Sana, it's a pleasure and honor to speak with you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, I'm excited for talking
Likewise.
about my experiences.
We are talking in a very dramatic time in your home country and where I am. So I'm not exactly sure when we'll actually be able to publish the episode. We'll see. We're talking on the 23rd of February. Today, I guess tomorrow, the Iranians and the Americans will be meeting again. We don't know where that is. I know just that, like, there's tons of American forces surrounding where I am. And so maybe you can just, before we talk about everything else, what do you feel in this time? How do you look at what's happening in general, your feelings, where you used to live, grow up? What's going on in your head?
So, first and foremost, there is a huge hope for a big change. But at the same time, just watching in real time what is happening, the suspense and the weight um, is really something I've never experienced before. And I know many Iranians share the same feeling inside and outside of Iran, because we are connected to the people underground in Iran as well. We are all waiting and holding our breath and waiting for something good coming out of it, not the deal. No one is really um, waiting for a good deal to come out of this situation. We are waiting for the complete destruction of the regime, and a new regime coming and, you know, waiting for a chance for the people to actually choose what they want to do and a better future. So it's a lot of um, stress, weight, anger, and hope.
Yeah. Can you maybe just take us behind the scenes to what is happening in Iran in terms of, we tend to think in in our Western brains that everyone thinks like we do. So obviously the regime in Iran, the Islamic Republic regime, wants not to go to war and wants to have a peaceful, in our brains, we think that they think like us. Obviously they don't want all this death and destruction, and obviously they must not want to destroy Israel, America, whatever. They're normal people just like us. They have different rationales than we do. And you have written extensively on X and other places that is the worst way to look at it. They're a totally different regime than any other. Can you maybe explain how they think behind the scenes? How should we think of the leaders in the Iranian regime now?
So that's actually a great question, because this is something we see, and we really don't know how to convince the
Yes.
Western audience that this is not what you think it is. You know, a normal government is trying to basically achieve like a set of goals that will benefit the citizens of that country, while at the same time might benefit the politicians, but it's also like helping people, like is improving people's lives. What we are talking about is an ideological, uh, it's an Islamic theocracy, first and foremost, and then it's an ideological organization that values nothing more than its ideology. And this ideology that the Islamic Republic is built around has some core values. One of them is the destruction of Israel. And the other one is hostility towards America as the great Satan, as they would love to call it. And when we talk about these things, these are not just chants or slogans. It's not about some people gathering and chanting death to America or death to Israel. No, they are actually planning for it, and they have shown it throughout history, once and time again, since 47 years ago, that they actually would be willing to act on it. They've been planning for it for like half a century, uh, and they are not joking, and they are not just chanting this. They are planning to achieve it. And we see that with like funding terror proxies. We see that with the investment in military instead of investing in civilian infrastructures. Iran it's sitting on a lot of natural resources, and this is what like Iran's economy is based on: oil. But all the money goes into one thing, and that is building military weapons and funding and supporting terror proxies in order to achieve the goal, which is the destruction of Israel and pushing back America from the region, and then later going towards fighting America. Now, people might think, well, like, look, America is a great power, has a great military. They will never be able to compete. Well, yeah, they might not be able to compete militarily, which is the reason they are now willing to talk, because they know facing American military would be equal to their destruction. But they are very advanced in soft wars, which is the information war, infiltrating their lobbies and their like infiltrating the U.S. institutions using their lobbies and their connections and everything they have at their hand is not a military war, but they know how to go get away with that, so that, like, let's say you infiltrate an organization and then change it from within. So the public from outside thinks these changes came naturally, but it didn't. They were actually planned, and billions of dollars. Islamic Republic has spent billions of dollars on that. And aside from that, even when it comes to like actually militarily facing Americans, they have killed American soldiers throughout the years. They have funded Hamas to attack Israel. They have directly attacked Israel. So yeah, these are the things that is not just a slogan for them. It's a real fight. And in that fight, what makes the Islamic Republic very distinct is the ideology behind it that will basically justify doing all of that at a cost of millions of people dying, millions of their own people, Iranians, dying, killing people like citizens of all the neighboring countries. It's justified, and even their own death is justified. So this ideology, the reason I say like the Western mind cannot really fathom what it is. Um, this is something, this is an ideology that is willing to sacrifice its own children. Like, there are IRGC high-ranking generals that have killed their own children. Mohsen Rezai is one of them. He sent people hunting down his own son outside of Iran, and they killed him because he went against the system. So this is the ideology they hold, and there is no red line for them. They sacrifice anything and everything to achieve, like to stay loyal to that ideology and achieve
Yeah.
their goal.
Sana, one question that comes to mind every time we talk about Iran is that we keep on hearing that most Iranians don't support the regime. Is that true? How much would you say, percentage wise? I mean, roughly speaking, obviously we can't know exactly
Mhm.
because obviously I know that, by the way, the Israeli, I think it was the foreign ministry had like a secret survey they did of Iranians. I don't know how reliable that was, but it was like 70%, I think, around were people who didn't support the regime, and 30% or so either wouldn't say or did support. I'm so I don't know because it was it like an official Israeli thing. So I don't want to put it out there as the most reliable thing. We obviously have interest to show that the government in Iran isn't that great. But if someone who knows you grew up there, you know people there, you lived through the regime, how much, roughly speaking, do you think people who objectively support in Iran the current regime?
I would say at least 90% of people are against the current regime. But there's no way to obtain that statistics officially because the Islamic Republic is in place. This is another misunderstanding when it comes to the Western audience, Americans and Europeans. They don't understand that you cannot go survey people against the government. You will get killed. There's no way. Like, a government that shuts down the internet so that they can kill their own citizens easier, without the world knowing, does not allow you to survey them against the system. So while there's no way of obtaining that statistic as long as the Islamic Republic exists, uh, from the observations of not myself, but everyone around me, like everyone, every Iranian that I've gotten to know, it's like at least 90% of the people um, that are against the government and current regime.
You wrote a few times that Iranians feel abandoned. Who do you think do they attribute this abandonment? Because I've heard people say that they feel like, first of all, Donald Trump at this point, if he doesn't do anything, it's objectively an abandonment because he
Mhm.
literally told them to go protest and take over their institutions because basically the inference was that he was going to help them. And
Mhm.
if he cuts some sort of deal on the nuclear stuff, that's irrelevant to the protests. They wanted to get the regime out, and they didn't want to get gunned down in the streets. They're not being gunned down by nuclear weapons. They're being gunned down by, the Basij and the IRGC that are shooting at them. So, if so, obviously that would be an abandonment. But who else? I've heard that some people feel Israel abandoned the Iranians by not, uh, you know, at this moment in time preemptively, even before the United States does anything, jump in and try to help. Who exactly do they feel abandoned by, do you think?
I think first and foremost, all the leaders of the free world, um, Europeans, Americans, and then I would say the general public. Um, but the leaders specifically because they are not only not supporting the Iranians in a meaningful way, but also they make deals and still have their relationships with the Islamic Republic, which has no legitimacy in Iran. So you're basically dealing and dealing with an entity, which is the Islamic Republic, that is illegitimate and is not representing this country and its people, and treating it as if it's legitimate. So you're basically ignoring 90 million people that do not like this current regime. But with regards to Israel, and America specifically, people will feel stronger because first, the leaders of these two countries sent a message to Iranians directly. Like none of the Europeans really talk to Iranians directly as similar to Benjamin Netanyahu or President Trump. Um, Specifically when I talk to Iranians inside Iran, the ones that participated in the current revolution and went out, what they tell me is actually very heartbreaking because they say, we went out to the street after hearing what President Trump said, that help is on the way, keep protesting. We went out to the streets thinking that there is going to be American fire jets flying over us at the same time that we are in the streets. So we wouldn't get killed, or if we get killed, there's going to be consequences. But after that didn't happen in like a very short time, I mean, people are still hopeful that something will happen, but after it didn't happen in a very short time, um, people really uh, got hurt, got
Ejected.
disappointed. That
Yeah.
was they felt rejected. They felt abandoned. Specifically, Prime Minister Netanyahu sent multiple messages to Iranians that we're going to stand by you. We will
Hmm.
support you. We will help you. So people really take these messages seriously. More than anyone imagines, outside of Iran. They really listen to that. As Prime Minister Netanyahu said and it was an interview with Mark Levin. Um, he said that our messages get millions of views. Those are Iranians watching it, and they listen and they take it
But wait,
seriously.
can I just interject about Israel? So
Mhm.
we did have the 12-day war where
Yes.
Israel did bomb Iran, and I think it was a real for those who don't believe their propaganda, it was a real embarrassment for them. I
Mhm.
mean, we had missiles that fell around where we are about a kilometer away. It hit a building where 4 people died because it was direct hit by a ballistic missile into their safe rooms. They did everything right, but they died anyway. Um, it's all sad, and we had a number of people that died here, but it wasn't the mass casualty situation which we were sure was going to happen by an
Mhm.
Iranian strike on Israel, and it didn't
Yeah.
happen. They were Israeli jets were flying pretty low in Tehran. The entire airspace of Iran was basically taken over by a military that was very far away, that wasn't bordering Iran, and basically they could do whatever they want. They were shooting, if you remember, at the prison, uh, and there was a bunch of situations where a functioning country wouldn't let happen. And then, so first of all, were the Iranian people that don't like the regime happy about what happened during that 12-day war? Were they disappointed that President Trump told Israel to stop? If you remember, on the last day, turned back the jets.
Yeah.
Um, so how do they look back at those 12 days?
Um, First of all, they were very disappointed when President Trump asked Israel to stop, especially after it turned out that Israel was planning to target Khamenei and President Trump didn't allow that. Now, specifically, that is why um, they now really expect President Trump to do something because they think, well, you told Israel to stop now and you said help is on the way. Now you have to do something. If he didn't do that, I don't think there would be such an expectation. Um, but in terms of like the 12 days war, I'm telling you the things that I hear from people on the ground. They were happy about it. They were very happy because people, I mean, they like to uh generate all sorts of propaganda to say like, oh, these were like civilians. I mean, yeah, there were some civilians, but there were mostly very high-ranking IRGC and Basiji and really high-ranking officials that have the blood of Iranians on their hand. So people were enjoying it, and surprisingly enough, people felt way more safe during the 12 Days War than they feel now. Um, and I'm not even kidding. They were like, "Oh, Israel is not going to do anything to us," but they know for a fact, and the evidence shows that the Islamic Republic kills more civilians than any other foreign country. Like, if you look back at like not even the contemporary history, um, Iranian historians have been talking about this a lot lately. That if you go back throughout history, the last time someone killed so many Iranians, it was during the Muslim invasion of Iran. There were reports of like killing 40,000. But that was a foreign entity. It wasn't even the the Iran's government or the Iran's ruling body that was killing people.
How
So
many, by the way, how many what is the estimate among uh, people that you speak about in Iran or people that are following this closely about how many people actually have been killed by the regime during these protests over the past month and a half or so?
So the official, like the numbers that sources have obtained from talking to medical staffs, people
Hmm.
at the hospitals working at morgues, um, around like across Iran, the numbers they obtained was like something around 43,000.
Well,
President Trump a couple days ago said 32,000. But what we know for sure is that it's in the order of tens of thousands.
yes,
And that's a lot. That's a lot. Even if you get the lower bound of like
right.
20,000 or 10,000, it's a lot of people because it happened during less than 48 hours. In less than 48 hours, the government gunned down, not bombed. That is also something that people uh, are really ignoring. They weren't killed by bombs. They were gunned down one by one in
Mhm.
the streets, unarmed civilians. Um, and yeah, it's in the order of tens of thousands. And again, the number like 43,000 is based on the reports of medical staffs and workers at the morgues around
So,
Iran.
so even if we take the lower number, let's say 30, 32,000,
Uh-huh,
Time Magazine put 30, but that was before a lot of this stuff started. More stuff
uh-huh,
came in. Tens of thousands of people have been killed. If
uh-huh,
we, and this is something that you've written about a lot, the hypocrisy of the protesting class, so to speak. So since October 7th, we've seen protests all over the West and all over the world, but we're talking about the West here, by people who were very angry about innocent lives, quote unquote, being killed in Gaza. If we take Hamas's own numbers, during the 2+ years, almost now 3 years of war, because there's still the yellow line. If someone crosses, there's been skirmishes. People are still being killed here and there. So if we take the almost 3 years of war, according to Hamas, there's about 60 plus, almost 70,000 people that have been killed.
uh-huh.
And if we look at the ages, the sex of the people being killed is around half of military aged men. So let's take half of the people, say, we're even going to take the kids. There's a lot of children soldiers, 16-year-old that are fighters. So even if we all say they're all innocent, about half of the people are probably terrorists. So
Yeah.
30,000 more or less civilians are collateral damage. In 2 days, the Iranian regime has killed more innocent civilians than Israel has killed in a war with bombs and jets and all that in about 3 years, 2.5 years. And yet, the same people who were blocking roads and burning stuff and taking over campuses and all of these stuff that we've seen over the past, I don't know, 2 years or so, has been pretty much nothing. And the people, the celebrities, I mean, we just had the Golden Globes, I think, and they were all talking about ICE and two people that died in Minnesota. There's literally 30,000 plus people that have been killed in Iran. No one even spoke about it. So what do you feel about it? What do Iranians looking from inside think about? Just do they comprehend how is this even possible?
Um, I would say we were not surprised because we knew, looking at their conducts since October 7th attack, um, we knew that this is gonna happen. And during this time, before even this happened in Iran, there were multiple incidents. There were Christians being killed in Nigeria, Sudan. They had zero reaction to that. They didn't even cover it in the media. Um, so we were not surprised, but it is still very revealing how they were pretending that, oh, like 30,000 people is a lot of people being killed. Like, even though they're in crossfire of a war with a foreign government, not their own government, not like that, not being gunned down deliberately, looking at children and shooting them in the face. Not that, but still, oh, 30,000 people is a lot of people. So how come that 30,000 Iranians are not a lot of people? The numbers are the same. How come it's not different? We're not surprised because we know many of these protests were funded by organizations that also fund Hamas. They are affiliates of the Islamic Republic. Um, but for the audience who are not being paid, for those ones, the ones that actually looked at it from the human rights perspective, this should be very revealing that the most horrific reports that come out of Iran, and these are not things that, like, Israel is reporting. These are not things that CIA is reporting. These are not the intelligence coming out of intelligence services that they do not really trust. This is coming from people on the ground, people that we know, people that we talk to. These are the eyewitnesses' testimonies, these horrific reports. But they still choose not to believe it because they call it Zionist propaganda. And I don't even know how this is related to Israel somehow,
Well, I
because
would
it's
just
the
say,
Islamic Republic.
Sana, that a lot of them don't even say they don't believe it. They just don't even talk. They don't care. They don't even like, those are the real crazy people that are like actually taking the regime's side. But most people on that kind of the people who used to protest, who still protest against Israel and everything, most of them don't even acknowledge that anything is happening in Iran. It's just nothing. It's a nothing thing for them. They don't even have to explain because for them it's obvious, I guess, that they need to protest for the Palestinians against Israel, but they don't have to even acknowledge that there's an issue happening in Iran. Now, I think that, like, so I would just say that it's weird. It's not just the money. Maybe another thing that we can ask you about is there's a sort of
Ideological.
yeah, there's a sort of ideology on the campus elites, we can call it, maybe the left, but the new left, not the old liberal left, which is
Mhm.
a good thing. I think it's a discussion having about where we want the West to be, but there's a lot of people on the university scene that don't like the West, and
Mhm.
therefore, if Israel is seen as being part of the West, we hate Israel because, and we hate America, by the way, as extension to that. And Iran is against Israel, is against America, and therefore Iran is good.
Yeah.
basically the Iranian regime, not Iran. And therefore that if someone inside Iran is trying to attack the regime, they must be the bad people
Yeah.
because they are serving America's interest by extension and Israel's interest, obviously. And this is something that for some odd reason is spreading, which is very disturbing.
Yeah, you brought up a really great point. From the ideological standpoint, these are the people that are anti-imperialism
Yes.
and anti-colonialism.
Right.
And they would like to interpret this situation as, oh, this is Islamic Republic is an anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist
Yes.
entity, and these are the true freedom fighters, and anything or anyone who goes against it, even if it's unarmed civilians, it's the evil.
Yes.
It is helping America, it's going to benefit Israel, then it's evil. But what they really fail to understand is, I mean, I honestly think the lack of education is mind blowing because the Islamic Republic is an imperialist entity that has exported its influence and its power in Iraq, in Lebanon, and they're not even secretive about it. It's not like some secret that they don't know. They're very public about supporting Hezbollah and supporting Hamas and Houthis and Hashd al-Shabi and Fatimiyun in
Yeah.
Afghanistan, around Iran, all these neighboring countries. The Islamic Republic has its grip over Iraq, Lebanon. It had over Syria. They recently
Yemen.
cut it off. They have it over Yemen, in Gaza, in Afghanistan, and somehow that is not considered an imperialist entity. Um, I just don't understand. This, I think, goes back to part of it is lack of education, and partially is the demonization of the West,
Yes.
and um, whites are the
Yes.
colonialist,
By the
evil
way,
imperialists.
exactly. And I think these people really hate that it's like a sort of self-hatred. This kind of thought is all Western created. So these are people that benefit of Western societies. They benefit of capitalism. They benefit of freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom for women. A lot of them are these feminist radicals and all this kind of stuff. And then they support all of the enemies of the same type thought that made them be where they are. It made them have the influence they have, the thought they
Right.
have, the jobs they have, everything that built them, that allowed them to build their careers, their lives, they want to destroy because they're screwed in the head. And what I find disturbing is that that trend is growing. More and more people, and I would just say to parents, by the way, before I ask my next question, find out what your kid is going to learn in college and make sure that it's not a college that teaches this type of thing, because there's a lot of parents that the kid comes home in the first semester and he became a crazy loon. So and it's very sad. um I guess the next question that I have for you is, I've read a lot, and I think you also wrote about, and a bunch of other people, that there's within the people that we see in the media, supposedly speak in Western media, supposedly speaking for Iranians, there's a certain group or groups that are not to be trusted, that supposedly speak for you and people in Iran, and yet they have nefarious agendas. Can you talk a little bit about that and what kind of groups there are that are taking, I guess, the spokesperson people for the Iranian people?
Mhm. So this goes back to something I briefly mentioned. The Islamic Republic has invested billions of dollars in soft power and influence in America to influence American foreign policy across Europe. And in America, um, at least because it's where I live, they are very distinct. Um, and some of them are very well known. Um, One example, and I'm gonna give you some examples and then tell you what are the exact talking points that at this time you're providing. First is like one of the most well-known ones, that is very old. is NIAC, National Iranian American Council, that was founded by Trita Parsi. Trita Parsi, after he founded NIAC, there were some rumors about his connections with the Islamic Republic officials. And there was this one activist that started like publicly claiming they are lobbying for the Islamic Republic. Trita Parsi and NIAC took a lawsuit against him. And during that lawsuit, they had court discovery. And during the court discovery, there were some information surfacing about how Trita Parsi was setting up meetings for Islamic Republic officials with Americans, with Europeans, and that the very particular person that he was in contact with the most was Javad Zarif, who later became the foreign minister of Iran and the architect of JCPOA, Iran nuclear deal, which was signed during Obama. So that, and then they destroyed some evidence for which they were fined for. The ruling didn't came out as like they are some lobby organization, but they destroyed a bunch of evidence and they lost the case and they were basically fined for it. So that's that. And then Trita Parsi went out to this organization became so famous among Iranians. And it was so stigmatized, the name became so stigmatized that Trita Parsi left NIAC, started another organization, this time a think tank. The previous one, National Iranian American Council, is a nonprofit organization, but this time he started Quincy Institute, which is a think tank, a responsible statecraft. And this is like basically NIAC on steroid. They actually have like strong connections with politicians. They constantly meet with people on the Capitol. They make donations to certain politicians. And those certain politicians at like very critical moments, they start pushing their narrative, which is right now, no war with Iran. Now, what are their popular talking points? Their most famous talking point is that what is hurting Iranians? Iranians are hurting. And it's because the economy has collapsed. But what is the reason that the economy has collapsed? The reason is the sanctions. And who is responsible for the sanctions is America. So America is the problem here. Americans are causing this issue. That aside, America and Israel are also fueling the protests. So it is the Mossad and CIA agitators are also involved in these protests. And that is what caused the Islamic regime forces to open fire on the people, because there were some Mossad and CIA agitators. But some innocent people got in the crossfire and were killed. The numbers are inflated. The numbers are not real. That's that. And then another very famous one these days is that the leader of this movement should come from inside Iran. And who is inside Iran? The people that Trita Parsi and his likes have been in communication with throughout years, are very well connected. Who are they? They are reformists. Reformists are parts of the Islamic Republic. They are more willing to work with America to stay in power, but they have the same ideologies, and they have the same stance towards America, anti-America, anti-Israel, anti-West, and all that sort of things. So they are right now very much against Pahlavi, who is very popular, the only name that people called across Iran. The only name that people called was Pahlavi. And they are right now very active on promoting the propaganda that, oh no, it's people are against monarchy, people are against mullahs. They want something new. And where is that something new coming from? Inside Iran. But something that the audience should be smart to remember is that if a real opposition a real opposition against the Islamic Republic will never survive inside Iran. They will kill immediately. Immediately, they will be eliminated. So if there is some opposition that is still surviving in the under the Islamic Republic, is not a real opposition against the Islamic Republic. It's the same system. So those are like their major talking points right now.
And one about, you mentioned the sanctions. How does the regular Iranian on the street look at the sanctions? Does he blame his leaders, or does he blame America and Israel for pushing the sanctions?
Um, First, something that Iranians are smart enough to know, and we hope that the Western audience is also able to grasp, is that why are the sanctions in place? Are Saudis under sanctions? People in the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, are those countries under sanctions? No. Why are they not under sanctions? Because they are not funding terrorists. They are not constantly involved in terrorist activities. They don't have malicious ambitions. They don't have terroristic adventures. They are not like that. So that is why they are not under sanctions. The reason the people in Iran know that the reason we are under sanctions is the Islamic Republic. That is why we don't want this system. We will be under sanctions as long as they exist, because they will never act like a normal government. They will never act in the benefit of the people. Otherwise, people have explored other avenues throughout the years. It's not like people woke up one day and decided to revolt against the entirety of the Islamic Republic. We went through years of other uprisings. The 2009 uprising was a reformist uprising, which was very popular. It was a reformist because people still thought, okay, if the reformists take power, our problems are the hardliners. Let's bring reformists in power to see. Then Hassan Rouhani came into the power. He was a reformist. During his presidency, 1,500 people were killed, gunned down in 3 days. Why? Because they protested against the regime. And then the sanctions were lifted during Obama, when JCPOA was in place. The sanctions were lifted, but people didn't really feel the difference. All the money that came into the country, none of them was invested in civilians' infrastructure. None of them improved civilian lives. It all was invested in terrorism. It went to Hezbollah, and these are not like some conspiracies. They are very public about the numbers and the billions of dollars they have sent to Hezbollah, or the money that they sent to Hamas, or their help with the Houthis. They were very public about that. They empowered Hashd al-Shaabi in Iraq. So all of these money was spent and invested in military adventures and terrorism. So yeah, people do one major reason that people don't want the Islamic Republic is that it will never work in their benefit to be able to uh, operate as a normal government, so that the sanctions won't be in place.
Yes. If let's say tomorrow America goes in, kills Khamenei, and then also, I guess, decapitates the regime, and we have a new Iran. What kind of Iran do you think will we see? Will it be, you know, a democracy? Will it be a monarchy? What kind of a thing will it be back to a religious state? You never know. What do you think we'll see?
I think one thing we can say for sure is that the overwhelming majority of Iranians, even the ones that are religious Muslims, are want the separation of church and state. They don't want the rule of clergy. They want the future of Iran to be secular, people be free to practice their religion, whatever it is. Well, we don't want the clergy to rule the country and be in power like that. We know that. Well, who doesn't like democracy, functioning democracy? But that's something that the election uh, will decide. Like, that's basically what we are fighting for. We are currently fighting for a chance to have a real election so that people choose what they want. That could be constitutional monarchy, that could be monarchy, it could be a republic. That's up to the people. We don't know. We see that um, Prince Reza Pahlavi has the overwhelming majority of the support. Um, he will be the transitional leader, but the election will decide uh, what will actually be the next government in Iran.
What do a small question before I get to my last question?
Mhm.
What are the how do you look at the Jewish support um for for the Iranian people? So we obviously after October 7th we're very looking inwards, but I think at least from what I see, and I'm in Israel, so I don't know everything what's happening outside of here, but do you get the feeling that the Jewish people in general are very, I guess, helpful and take an integral part in supporting the Iranian people in the streets of the West and in general, maybe also in capitals all over the Western world?
Yes. And believe me, Iranians, it's not only us, the Iranian diaspora, who sees that outside of Iran. Iranians inside Iran are very well aware of that and they are carefully watching. And actually, like the Israeli community, the Jewish community has been our main ally
Hmm.
since the beginning. Um, and we see that very well. And that is also another thing that the Islamic Republic understand, that the majority of Iranians want to be in peace with Israel, want to be an ally to the free world, uh, including Israel. So it, if the government in any way um, agrees to any sort of deal with America, it means it has abandoned all of those core values that are like being an anti-Israel, anti-America. And that is a direct attack to the entirety of the Islamic Republic.
Yes.
So that is also something they are very well aware of. And that is why a good deal will never come out of any sort of negotiations, because they see that. And Iranians also see that and they support the Israeli right to exist and defend itself, and they want to be an ally.
Yeah.
The Iranian public is so tired of being in a constant war um, with other countries in the world.
Sana, can you tell us a little bit about your personal story? So, I've gathered different things that you've said over in different platforms. Um, you're what you are allowed to say, what you feel
Mhm.
comfortable with saying, because I know that maybe you have some family still there. You don't want to
Yeah.
obviously say too much, but can what
Mhm.
from what you can tell us, how was it, number one, growing up in Iran, and then like what can you give us a little bit of a sense of what it was going to school as a little
Mhm.
girl in Iran, and then you spoke a little bit about your father's ordeal. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
so we can get to know who you are.
So I was born and raised in Tehran. I was actually born into a fairly religious family, Shia Muslims. And I was raised as a Muslim. I was a practicing Muslim until 18 years old. I went to Islamic religious schools, um, and there you are constantly brainwashed and indoctrinated, um, with extra propaganda, anti everything in the world, basically, except the Islamic Republic. Um, and yeah, I was affected by that. My father was also very religious, but he was also open-minded. Um, and yeah, did was never a fan of the Islamic Republic. Um, and he taught me really well. Um, about the nature of the Islamic Republic. Well, we had some sort of disagreement, obviously, because my father believed that what they are implementing is not real Islam, and real Islam is not like that. Well, we had our disagreements, um, but yeah, he was against the Islamic Republic and the way they conducted themselves, and for that, he actually paid a price. My father, um, when the revolution happened, my father was, I think, 18. And then the 3 years of Cultural Revolution, all the schools were closed. Basically, the Islamic Republic was trying to reset the system, clean up the textbooks, change the history, change the narrative, um, and fill the textbooks with propaganda. They fired everyone that was not loyal to the system and was not religious. So two main criteria: being religious and loyal to the system. And the loyalty was above all. Um, my father got accepted to Polytechnic University, chemical engineering. It was a really good school. And then he passed like the interview, which was all religious and questions, had nothing to do with his major. And then they started doing research on him, and they found out that, oh, their family is not like super loyal to the system, and they're not a fan. So they banned him from going to school. And in Iran, if you don't have a reason, or you're not a student, you're supposed to go to mandatory military service, serve the military right after you're 18. And my father was banned from school, so they took him as a part of his mandatory military service to Iran-Iraq war. Back then, um, that was happening. He served in front lines of the war as a soldier of the army, not Sepah, army, for 2 years, almost 2 years. And then he came back, um, was engaged to my mom, and then he got kidnapped. He got kidnapped by the regime instead of his friend. So mistakenly, they kidnapped him, and the intelligence services were torturing him. No one knew where he is. They just knew that he's taken, and he was being tortured for a couple weeks for a forced confession to sign that he's the person that he's not. Basically, his friend had done something against the regime, and they arrested him and were trying to force him to sign a confession saying that he has committed things that he has not done. My father did not bend under torture. Horrific things that he described to me, how he was like hung from his wrist for hours, and they would flog him blindfolded, and then he would like pass out. They would throw water on him, bring him, like make him unconscious, and then start torturing him again. Um, my father did not sign the forced confession, and eventually my grandfather found some connections in the back alleys. That's how the corrupt system works, right? No rule of law. You'll have to find connections to survive the system. So my grandfather, through some connections that he found, he could get him out. The case was dropped because he didn't sign the forced confession, and he was released. But as you can guess, his life was completely changed after that. My father was planning to leave Iran. He couldn't. So after that, it was just, he really saw the truth with his own eyes. This is not something you hear. And this is the story of many, many, many families in Iran. These are not some sort of propaganda that people told us. These are the things that we've seen, like being tortured in prison. It's something that we know it happens. Um, and yeah, my father, after that, it started like growing, his hate for the system grew even stronger. And I held on to that growing up. Um, but like when it came to Israel, I also like to talk about this a lot. Um, because I was pro-Palestine. I was one of those people who thought this is a human rights issue, right? Oh, these are like these like oppressed people that are being killed and they haven't done anything. Um, and you don't get the actual history of what happened. Obviously, going to school in Iran, the history is completely changed and uh, all lies. But I knew that this is a corrupt system, but I was still like in terms of Israel issue, I was not educated at all. I had received nothing but whatever I was fed in the system, and I didn't even attempt to learn about it. And I looked at it as like, okay, this is a human rights issue, like this oppressed people. Um, I was very left leaning, um, and then I moved to America. I moved to America in 2019, and the first year I was like, yeah, I'm still holding on to that until the COVID happened. COVID happened, and there was, I vividly remember this, there was a clubhouse room. The clubhouse became very popular. There was a clubhouse room specifically for Israelis and Palestinians to talk. And I would go in that room and just listen. I even remember uh, Yolanda Hadid, Bella Hadid's sister, Mohammed Hadid's daughter, was there once, and they would talk, and I just saw like I would hear Israeli activists or Israeli ordinary people would talk as it in a sense yeah, I mean, we want peace for both of us, right? We want peace. We want coexistence for both of us. But they would jump on the stage, like the Palestinian side, very aggressively attacking and saying, no, no, those are our lands. Those are soil lands. And this is our right, and you have no right to exist, and you have no right to be here. Go back to your countries. And I started like thinking, and after that, I started actually reading the actual history of what happened and what went down and what is happening now. And that's when the light went went on, and I was like, okay. So everything I knew was a lie, basically. Um, it's not like one day Israel decides to attack Palestinians and kill all of them, which is pretty much what the Iran state media feeds people.
Sana,
Uh,
I have
mhm,
a just a, so exactly. But another thing that when I was, if you remember, I don't know if you remember because I don't know what they showed you on the media by where you were, but um, there was one of the presidents of Iran was Ahmadinejad, and one time I was living in New York when I was younger, or my father still lives in New York, so there was a time when he came and he
mhm.
was invited to, if you remember, I think it was Colombia, and he said there's no homosexuals in Iran. It was a big thing. Everyone was making fun of him in the American press. It was it was very funny, but there was something that was really weird in the sense that the Iranian they really love the regime and its, I guess, the way they teach people in Iran. They really love Hitler. He's almost like a folk hero for the regime and its supporters. Can you, just to close off, why do they love Hitler so much? Why is it so important to them? Because they had this thing, if you remember when he was the president, I distinctly remember they had a show in Tehran saying how like the Holocaust didn't happen. They were bringing people from all over the world to, I guess, speak, I get, like these were experts, quote unquote, to speak about how the Holocaust, which like my whole family from my mom's side died in 2 generations ago, wasn't real. This was a big thing for them. Why? What do they? Why were they so fixed? Are they? Maybe they're still. I don't know. Why are they so
Mhm.
fixated with Hitler and trying to make him out to be a good person?
So one, um, it's interesting that you brought up Ahmadinejad because he was the first um, Iranian politician who officially named it and denied Holocaust. And believe it or not, I had not even heard the word Holocaust because that's not what they teach us. We have history lessons starting from first grade until we graduate high school. And in none of those history books, they speak a word about Holocaust when they are speaking about the World War II. All they talk about is that Hitler is this man that had these ambitions, and this was a good guy that was fighting for improving his country, and there were some of these people inside Germany were trying to, like, the writers and how they address us now. These people were trying to destroy the system from within, and then Hitler goes mad and starts, like, following his ambitions. But they don't say a word about the Holocaust and slaughtering Jewish people. Nothing at all. The first time I learned about the word Holocaust was from Ahmadinejad denying it. And then after that, I watched a movie on Iran's state media, Schindler's List. I watched Schindler's List and I was like, did this really happen? And that's when I learned about the Holocaust and what had actually happened. Um, they love Hitler because if they admit that Hitler was a bad person, then they have to admit that Jews were victims. And in their story and in their mind, Jews, since thousands of years ago, since the prophets, Jews have never been the victim. Jews have always been these demonic bad people. And that's what they teach in, like, religion courses. I'm not making this up. Like, these are not some imagination. This is what they taught us. That Jews were this really bad people who needed thousands of prophets to be sent to them. And they killed all of these prophets. That's what they taught us.
But Sanab, how is there? This is just to close off because I know we're taking your time. But how
No, so
then? How are there some? There is a Jewish community in Tehran. They
mhm.
seem to really hate Israel. That's what they say, at least. They also have, like I think, a official member in the Iranian parliament who's supposed to represent the Jews. Although I'm pretty sure he's like a mouthpiece and
Yeah.
to the regime. But how do they tell their own people why do they keep the Jews around if the Jews are like the worst of the worst?
Well, the Jews are not being treated equally as Muslims in Iran, neither any other minority.
Right.
Jews get the worst of it, but you have Zoroastrians, Christians, Sunni Muslims do not have a good life in Iran. Sunni Muslims are being prosecuted and killed constantly. And all of these, like, parliament members, first of all, people, non-Muslims, non-Shia Muslims are not allowed to hold office of, like, presidency or being a minister. They
Hmm.
cannot do that. They only have a representative in the parliament, which is fake, to save the face and it's their PR campaign, basically, to represent themselves as this, like, diverse um, ruling body that is accepting of even the Jews. And it's interesting that you said Jews hate Israel because they have to,
Right.
because they won't survive. They will get killed. They will get killed easily if they show any sort of support. they constantly get arrested and released. Like we hear the reports, like they constantly are getting arrested and
What, the
they're getting
Jews? Yeah,
interrogated. They're and this is on daily basis for them, and they have to in order to survive. They have to say, "Yeah, we hate Israel. We don't support
yeah.
Israel."
And one must ask why they allow, this has nothing to do with you, why these Jews stayed, because most of them left. My wife is
Uh-huh.
Iranian descent from her mom's
Yeah.
side. And so there's a large Iranian community, Jewish Iranians,
Mhm.
Persians, whatever you want to call them, in Israel, people that fled after the revolution in 79 and in the decade after that. And the people who stayed there, I guess it's a combination of people who were really well off and felt like they needed, like they had no, or people that didn't have any money to leave. So it's like either you're very rich and you're like, this is where I'm doing my money, my business. Little did they know that at this point, I think the money isn't really worth anything. And people who had zero money and therefore or were older and frail and couldn't
Uh-huh.
leave. But I think um, whoever is left there is someone who's in a very bad situation at this point,
Yeah.
because if President Trump does attack Iran, the Jews will suffer probably more than the average person if the regime
Mhm.
does survive. But either way, I learned a lot from you today. It
Thank you.
was fun, but
Yeah.
sobering, I think, and I'm happy that you're not in Iran anymore.
I'm
You,
glad too.
yeah, and we do hope that next year will be like they say in Hebrew, in Judaism, next year in Jerusalem, next year in Tehran, in the free Tehran, and
Yeah.
hopefully Israelis will be able to also visit
Yeah.
and hang out. So we'll see you in
Yeah.
Tehran next year.
Oh,
Sana
thank you so
Ebrahimi,
much.
it was a lot of fun, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I there's nothing I like more than to visit Israel one day.
Yes, come.
So hopefully next year, first in Tehran, and then we go back to we go to Israel.
And coffee's on me. So thank you, and we'll
Thank
see you
you.
in both places.
See you. Bye.